The story begins with Virginia, a woman traveling by plane to America. She is accompanied by a team from the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. The year is 1993. Once they arrive, the DEA agents take Virginia to a hotel in the United States. Virginia complains that her head is pounding and asks if someone can bring her an aspirin. But Agent Shepard tells her that no one is going to give her aspirin here because in America, aspirin is considered a drug. Hearing this, Virginia laughs and thinks to herself, if Pablo had heard this, he would have laughed too and then killed everyone. The story then jumps back to Colombia in 1981. We see Pablo's luxurious mansion. Pablo is telling his wife Maria, "Did you see the guest list for the party?" Maria replies that yes, she has. And it's filled with beautiful women. Pablo has arranged a party, and among the invited guests is a TV anchor named Virginia. Virginia, along with a few other guests, arrives in Colombia by plane. When she looks outside, she notices armed men standing all along the runway. Frightened, she asks her companions, "Have these people kidnapped us?" As she steps off the plane, Pablo arrives to receive her and says, "Don't be afraid at all. These weapons are for the wild animals around here." Virginia responds, "I'm going to tell my host how you all welcome me." She has no idea that the man standing in front of her is Pablo Escobar, and that he is the one who invited her. Later, Virginia attends Pablo's party, a massive event filled with armed guards, top businessmen, actors, and high-profile guests. A man approaches Virginia and tells her that Pablo wants to meet her. When she finally sees him, she says, "So you are Pablo Escobar. Why didn't you tell me?" Pablo explains that he hosted this party to celebrate the foundation of a new society, an initiative to build homes for the poor. He says they plan to construct 2,000 houses for people who live in extreme poverty and survive in garbage. The next day, Pablo takes Virginia to the slum areas and shows her the location where he is building the houses. Seeing all this, Virginia is impressed and interviews him. She asks him about the homes he is building for the slum dwellers. Pablo replies that it pains him to see poor people with no place to live, and he wants to make the country better by giving them proper housing. Hearing this, Virginia becomes even more impressed. Pablo takes Virginia to dinner, where he asks if she is married. Virginia says she is, but she doesn't want to stay with her husband anymore. He is a plastic surgeon, and although they separated long ago, he refuses to give her a divorce. Pablo calmly tells her that he can solve that problem. The next day, Pablo's men kidnap Virginia's husband and take him away. While Virginia is busy hosting her show, a friend tells her that her lawyer called. Her husband has signed the divorce papers. Virginia is thrilled, finally free from her marriage. To celebrate, Pablo takes her on a private jet to an island, where he becomes intimate with her. Later, he brings her to another gathering filled with major drug traffickers, introducing her to members of his cartel. That same night, Pablo and his cartel prepare a plan to smuggle cocaine into America, and Virginia finds herself even more impressed with his seriousness and authority over the operation. The narrative then jumps to 1982 on a Florida highway. Suddenly, a truck blocks the road, bringing traffic to a halt. Drivers step out to see what's going on. At the beginning of this segment, chaos erupts on a Florida highway. Drivers stuck in traffic begin shouting in frustration. Suddenly, the men inside a stalled truck reveal their guns, intimidating everyone around them. Among the trapped motorists are two police officers, also stuck in the traffic. Before they can react, a small plane flies over their heads and lands directly on the highway. As soon as the plane comes to a stop, people waiting on the opposite side of the road sprint toward it. They rush to unload packets of drugs from the plane and quickly store them inside their cars. All of this cocaine had been sent from Colombia by Pablo. In Colombia, 1 kilo of cocaine costs about $7,000. But before sending it to the United States, Pablo's cartel would mix it with lactose, turning 1 kilo into 3 kilos, which could then be sold in the US for nearly $150,000. This was how Pablo was raking in enormous profit from the American market. By the time the police officers reached the plane, Pablo's men have already grabbed all the drug packages and escaped. Cocaine was now flooding the United States at an alarming rate. The situation becomes so severe that even the White House begins discussing it. During a television interview, the president admits that illegal cocaine is entering the country in massive quantities, and he promises that the government will take every necessary step to stop it. Inside the White House, DEA officer Shepard is present during the briefing. A senior official introduces him to Mr. Velarde, a representative of the Colombian government. Velarde explains that since 80% of the cocaine entering America comes from Colombia, the Colombian government has activated an extradition treaty with the United States. This treaty allows America to conduct trials for Colombian suspects arrested in drug cases. Velarde further explains that Colombian drug traffickers fear the American justice system, whereas they do not fear Colombian courts. because in Colombia, they can easily bribe judges or have them killed. The White House official then tells Shepard that he will be handling this critical case. Meanwhile, Pablo and his associates discuss the extradition treaty. They wonder why a country would ever allow its citizens to be tried in another nation. Pablo warns them that if this agreement becomes official, all of them will be in danger. He explains that in Colombia, running for office requires enormous money: 10 million for a council seat, 100 million for a Senate seat, and nearly 1,500 million to run for president. Who can afford that? Pablo asks. In a democracy, you need money to gain power, and we have plenty of money. Pablo suggests that they enter politics, and his associates agree. Pablo then meets candidates from both major political parties, offering money to each so that no matter who wins, the elected official will support him. During the day, Pablo's planes are used for political campaigning. At night, those same planes transport cocaine into the United States. At home, Maria questions Pablo. She asks why he wants to enter politics when he already has wealth and a family. Pablo tells her he wants respect. He wants his children to be proud of him. Maria grows angry and walks away. Pablo follows her and asks if she doesn't want to become the first lady of the country. Then he asks what she wants from him. Maria answers that she wants him to end his relationship with that TV woman. Pablo insists that from that day onward, everything between him and Virginia will be over. But in reality, Pablo is still intimate with Virginia at a hotel. Later, during an election campaign event in Medellin, Pablo gives a speech in front of a huge crowd, and Virginia is present. Maria also attends and becomes furious seeing Virginia there, realizing Pablo did not keep his promise. Soon, the election results are announced. Pablo Escobar is elected the representative of Medellin. The crowd applauds him enthusiastically. As a member of the House of Representatives, Pablo becomes even more famous and influential. One day, Pablo begins stuffing Virginia's bag full of cash. Startled, Virginia asks him why he is filling her bank account with money. Does he want to put her in danger? She reminds him that she will not support his drug business. Pablo tells her that the money is a gift, telling her to take it and enjoy her life. Hearing this, Virginia embraces him happily. Pablo had now taken full control of her life as well. Pablo had now transformed Virginia's lifestyle completely. She began living in luxurious hotels, and Pablo frequently sent her expensive gifts wherever she stayed. Later, when Virginia was staying at a hotel in New York, she unexpectedly ran into Shepard. He showed her his ID card and said that he wanted to speak with her. Virginia agreed to meet him, and during their conversation, Shepard asked whether she had interviewed Pablo Escobar. Virginia confirmed that she had and that many people had seen the interview. Shepard then asked her if she had any idea how Pablo earned his money. Instead of answering directly, Virginia asked what the American embassy's opinion was about Pablo. Shepard replied that their opinion was not very good, but Virginia argued that Pablo was now an elected representative in the Colombian government, so she didn't believe the DEA had any authority to interfere in Colombian politics. Hearing this, Shepard accused her of being aligned with Pablo. Virginia snapped back, asking why he didn't take that question to the CIA instead, and she stood up and left. Soon after, Pablo was in Parliament when Minister Lara Bonetta publicly accused him, saying that Pablo Escobar had become rich overnight and owed the nation an explanation about the source of his wealth. He declared that Pablo's presence in the House was an insult to every Colombian citizen. People in the chamber applauded loudly, and Pablo, visibly nervous, stood to defend himself. He said that the minister had accused him of earning illegal money, and so he would give him 24 hours to prove his claims. Pablo argued that the minister should also disclose the sources of his own campaign funding and promised that he would present evidence about where that money came from. After finishing his statement, Pablo returned to his seat while the entire chamber turned against him. Lara Bonetta stood again and accused Pablo further, stating that Pablo had expert knowledge about how drug trafficking operations work. The chamber applauded once more, and Pablo felt deeply humiliated. The truth about Pablo's criminal dealings was no secret. Everyone already knew. That night, Pablo's wife Maria urged him to resign before he was forced out. She said the entire country was laughing at him and that he would be accused every day from now on. She reminded him that he had promised her everything would be fine, and now she was pregnant. She didn't want her child to suffer because of him. She demanded that he promise nothing would happen to their son. Otherwise, she did not want the baby. At that moment, Pablo received a phone call and instantly grew tense. He was informed that damaging news about him would be published the next day in the newspapers. Panicked, Pablo immediately ordered that no newspaper should reach the public the next morning. He said he was willing to pay 500 pesos for each copy to keep them off the streets. The following day, as newspaper bundles were being distributed throughout the city, Pablo's men followed each delivery truck, grabbing all the bundles and loading them into their own vehicles. Those newspapers contained explosive reports about Pablo's criminal record, including allegations that he had murdered 2 police officers. If the news had reached the public, Pablo's political career would have been destroyed. Later, Pablo discussed with his partners the idea of killing the minister who had insulted him. His partners hesitated and reminded him that the man was not an ordinary person. He was a government minister. Killing him would make their situation even worse. But Pablo insisted that their problems were already huge, and that the time had come to start killing people so that others would learn to respect them. This was a war, he said, and they needed a complete victory, not a half victory. Pablo then visited a training site where young recruits were practicing for the assassination. These boys had never received an education and were willing to kill or die for 20,000 pesos, money they planned to give their families before going on the missio. Soon after, the selected assassins rode motorcycles and followed the minister's car. Once they got close, they opened fire, killing him instantly before escaping. The man they killed was Rodrigo Lara Boneta, the same minister who had spoken against Pablo in Parliament. While Virginia was anchoring the news, she was handed the breaking update. She looked at the screen and announced, "Minister Lara Boneta had been assassinated just minutes ago." Virginia immediately understood that Pablo was the one who had the minister killed. The assassination became a massive national incident, and after this, the Colombian government declared war on the mafia. Even the Colombian president agreed to move forward with the extradition treaty with the United States. It was no longer safe for Pablo to stay in Colombia, so he fled to Panama with his men and began negotiating with the Colombian government from there. On May 29, 1984, Pablo met with a former Colombian president in Panama. He offered a deal. Pablo and his cartel would help boost Colombia's economy and even pay off the country's $12 billion debt. In return, the Colombian government had to reject the extradition treaty with the United States, meaning that anyone arrested for drug crimes in Colombia could not be sent to the US for trial. But the Colombian officials present said that there would be no negotiation on extradition. The president would never agree to that. Pablo urged them to convince the government to cancel the treaty, insisting that the only alternative was war. And wars, he reminded them, are won by those who have money. Meanwhile, Pablo's wife gave birth to a daughter outside Colombia. One night, when Virginia returned home in Bogota, she found Pablo waiting for her. She angrily confronted him, saying he was killing people and had murdered the minister. Pablo insisted that the minister deserved what happened and that the government had forced him to take action. Pablo asked Virginia to come with him, but she refused and walked away. Soon after, a delivery man arrived at a Colombian judge's house with a package. He said it had been sent by Don Pablo Escobar. The judge instantly understood that it meant a dead body of one of his family members had been delivered. Shocked, he collapsed on the spot. Pablo had now begun targeting judges, journalists, and government officials across Colombia. The government announced a reward of 1 billion pesos for information leading to Pablo's capture. Hearing this, Pablo became furious. He told his men that the amount was an insult and ordered them to arm as many slum boys as possible. His men began distributing weapons to the young men living in the slums, and Pablo promised them rewards for killings: 2 million pesos for killing any government official and $5,000 for killing an inspector. The boys went wild at the offer and began murdering police officers all over the city, even traffic cops. Because Pablo's girlfriend Virginia was publicly associated with him, she also began receiving death threats. The police, enraged by the killings of their officers, retaliated by killing groups of slum boys, 10 of them for every officer murdered. In response, the Colombian government formed a special military unit dedicated solely to capturing or killing Pablo. Shepard was placed in charge of this elite task force. Another team was assigned to track Pablo's location through any intel they could gather. But Pablo's men flooded the system with fake calls and misleading tips, making it impossible to determine where he actually was. Virginia was eventually fired from her news channel job because of her relationship with Pablo. As she stepped out of the office, she ran into Shepard. The two spoke privately, and Virginia admitted she had been fired and now needed to find a new job, even joking that she also needed a new man. She flirted with Shepard, but he warned her that Pablo would kill him if he found out. He told her that no company would hire her now, so the best thing she could do was help him capture Pablo. He offered her full protection if she cooperated, but Virginia refused. When she called the waiter for the bill, he told her it had already been paid. Shepard immediately realized it was Pablo's men. He spotted a suspicious car outside and went out with his gun, but the men inside sped away. Pablo's people were clearly keeping watch on Virginia. Furious, She called Pablo and accused him of having her followed. She blamed him for ruining her life and getting her fired. Pablo said she was only talking that way because she thought someone was recording the call. Virginia shouted that everything between them was over and that anyone listening should record her words clearly. She had nothing to do with that killer anymore. From this moment on, everything between them was finished. Meanwhile, Pablo was hiding in the jungle with his men. He would secretly bring slum girls there to visit him, but one of them leaked his location to the police. When the military launched an assault using helicopters, Pablo's men released cages full of pigeons into the air. The birds flew straight at the helicopter's rotors, causing it to crash. Taking advantage of the chaos, Pablo managed to escape into the jungle. The military then killed one of Pablo's key men, Monjes, who managed the finances of the cartel. After this, the army killed another one of Pablo's major partners, Garza, the second most powerful man in the cartel after Pablo himself. By 1989, Pablo was still running through the jungle, trying to save his life. Even in hiding, he began using a radio station to issue threats to government officials. When the radio jockey asked him for proof that he was really Pablo Escobar, Pablo replied that proving it was very easy. He could have the jockey's entire family killed and blow up the radio station itself. Hearing this, the radio jockey began sweating in fear. Meanwhile, Virginia was at the Miami airport when chaos suddenly broke out. She soon learned that the Bogota airport had been shut down because a plane had exploded in midair. Pablo was behind the explosion. His men also carried out several more bomb blasts across Colombia. Shepard was informed that 107 people had died in the plane explosion, including 2 American citizens. Outraged, he went to the American ambassador and demanded permission to conduct a full-scale military operation for the safety of American citizens. The ambassador introduced him to 2 men. One was Valadez, and the other was Pablo's legal representative. Valadez told Shepard that Pablo was willing to surrender. A deal had been made between Pablo and the Colombian government. The extradition treaty with the US would be terminated, and in return, Pablo would surrender, meaning that even if captured, he would remain in Colombia, not be sent to America. Soon, a luxurious private prison was built in Medellin for Pablo and his men. Inside, Pablo was given every comfort he wanted. The truth was that once extradition was canceled, Pablo needed a safe place from where he could continue running his business. Pablo and his men were free to do whatever they wanted inside the prison. The Colombian national football team even came to the prison to play a match at Pablo's request. Women were also brought inside for the cartel's entertainment. Pablo even moved his family into the prison. One day, Pablo was with his daughter, and as he walked toward the exit with her, the guards opened the doors for him because they were terrified of him. But when Pablo snatched the car keys from the driver waiting outside, the guards immediately pointed their guns at him. Pablo realized that stepping outside meant they might kill him, so he quietly went back inside with his daughter. On the other side, Virginia had been banned from the media. No channel would hire her. Because of mounting debts, she had to sell her house and move into a rental apartment. She even bought a new phone number to avoid threatening calls, but the calls started immediately. Helpless, she went to meet Pablo in prison and told him that her life was ruined. Her phone rang non-stop with threats. She begged Pablo to publicly announce that their relationship was over. Pablo angrily said she was breaking his heart, even after everything he had done for her. Virginia snapped back, saying he had done nothing for her. In fact, he had destroyed her career. She reminded him that she was the only woman who ever loved him without wanting anything from him. Not even his wife had done that. Pablo exploded with rage, telling her never to compare herself to his wife. His wife had stayed with him when he had nothing, while Virginia flew to meet him on his money, wearing clothes bought with his money. He demanded to know why she had come. Virginia replied that she needed $80,000 to move to Europe. Pablo refused, saying he didn't have that much and that she should stay near him. Virginia lost her patience and said that if she stayed, she would give all of Pablo's information to anyone who came. Pablo stepped closer, scaring her. She apologized, saying it slipped out. Pablo hugged her and told her he would protect her so she could live longer, and warned her that no one would ever come near her again out of fear of him. Her entire life would be ruined. He walked away, leaving Virginia in tears. Later, Pablo met with one of his partners and accused him of giving him only $300,000 last month instead of the expected $2.5 million. The partner argued that 2 of their shipments had been seized and paying the full amount was impossible. Pablo shouted that the man was becoming richer because Pablo was stuck inside. Pablo's men then stripped the 2 partners and cut up their clothes with a cutter. News of Pablo committing murders inside his prison spread quickly. Public anger toward the government grew, and the authorities decided to transfer Pablo to a military facility. But before they could do so, Pablo and his men escaped. Pablo's old partners, the ones imprisoned for drug charges, switched sides and agreed to help the government. In return, the government cleared their criminal records. This led to many drug traffickers being released. Pablo's enemies also joined forces with paramilitary groups, DEA and CIA. Together, they began killing Pablo's closest associates. Their bodies were found everywhere with warnings written beside them. This is what happens to those who support Pablo. Meanwhile, Virginia went to a jewelry store to sell her jewelry for money. But just then, the jewelry shop, someone outside suddenly began banging on the jewelry shop door. Fearing for his life, the jeweler quickly pulled the shutter down, leaving Virginia trapped outside. The men outside started smashing the glass and even fired shots at it, but the glass was bulletproof, which saved Virginia's life. Eventually, the attackers fled. Meanwhile, Pablo was hiding with his family, constantly evading the police. His wife was extremely distressed. Pablo told her to take their child and leave the country immediately. On the other side, Virginia went to meet Shepard. She had learned that Pablo was planning to send his family out of the country. Virginia warned Shepard that Pablo's family must not be allowed to leave. If his family escaped safely, Pablo would feel secure and unleash total destruction in Colombia. He only cares about his family and no one else, she said. Shepard relayed this to his superiors, instructing them not to let Pablo's family leave, because when Pablo tried to contact them, they would be able to trace his location. Soon after, the German government refused to accept Pablo's family into the country. Since they were unable to leave Colombia, the army intercepted them at the airport and took them into custody. Pablo became furious when he learned that his family had been detained. His family was then placed in a hotel that was tightly guarded by the military. In the next room, DEA and CIA agents had set up surveillance equipment and were recording all phone calls, waiting for Pablo to make contact so they could trace him. Later, Pablo called his wife and asked where she had been taken. Crying, she told him that they were safe and that no one was hurting them, and asked him to take care of himself. Pablo immediately realized that the police were listening to the call. He began cursing the DEA and CIA agents and quickly hung up within 2 minutes so they wouldn't be able to track his location. Everyone knew Pablo would call again, so they waited. Eventually, Pablo called back and spoke to his daughter. This time, the police successfully traced the call and mobilized toward the location. Agents rushed toward the building. An army soldier spotted Pablo standing near a window, and the forces immediately surrounded the entire structure. Pablo also realized he had been cornered. The soldiers placed explosives on the door. Pablo sat near the window with his gun ready. The moment the door blasted open, he fired toward it, and the soldiers returned heavy fire. In that gunfight, Pablo was finally killed. His last remaining associate was also shot dead. The agents in the surveillance room celebrated the moment they learned the operation was successful. Pablo's wife, hearing the gunshots and updates, understood that he had been killed. Even Virginia, upon hearing the news, broke into tears. And with this, the movie comes to an end. And that wraps up the entire story. But now it's your turn. I really want to know, how was your experience? Did this story shock you, surprise you, or leave you speechless? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I read each one personally. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button. Let's hit our target of 2,000 likes. And if you're new here, join the family by subscribing because we bring you thrilling stories just like this every time. I'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned and stay legendary.